Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about storytelling. There's going to be two types. I'm going to talk a little bit about melodic storytelling and a little bit about vocal storytelling. Both of these can be useful to give your tracks a unique identity. So here's the project that I want to talk about today. I'm going to play a good portion of it so you can hear how the track is flowing and which elements are in there. And then we'll talk about the two types of storytelling that I use to make this section of the track work.
Suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. Naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes, every kind of pleasure you could conceive. And then you would get more and more adventurous, and you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. So in this idea then, everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality.
So that's the example. Let's now dive into the storytelling. The easiest one to explain is going to be the vocal storytelling. Let's just open up the spoken vocal here. And this is what it's really all about. This really adds a story to your track because you can literally talk about the topic. Now, I'm not going to be talking about where I'm getting these vocals from. That really is a trade secret of every artist. What I will say though is that they have a very unique function in your track. As I said, they really give a story to your track because they are about the topic and that is then the topic of the track. In this case, what is important about the vocals is that they stand out of the production as well as the mix. I already did a short on this idea that you want your stuff to stand out from the production. What that means is that in terms of higher frequencies, there's actually not a lot of content in this part of the track. There are, however, a lot of higher frequencies in this vocal because that's really where the understandability of the vocal comes from.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream.
I can prove that if I high pass this vocal, let's say at around 1.5K here.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. Naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes.
You can hear, even though there's some distortion and a big reverb on this vocal, you can still hear everything that is being said. It is a little bit quieter, obviously, because we're filtering out a good chunk of it, and it feels very thin, but everything that he is saying is still there. And that is important because when you have a vocal that is telling a story, you obviously want people to hear what the story is about. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense adding that vocal. And that's something that a lot of people are forgetting. You need to prepare the track for this kind of vocal. It really needs to have its own special place in the track. In that, as you can see, it is in a breakdown in this case, and all of the other elements are kind of making way for this vocal to exist. I'm going to amplify that maybe even more in the mix, but already in the production, I'm taking into account the fact that this vocal is here. Now, before we continue, I quickly want to say I'm pre-recording this video because during the holidays, I'm going to be at my parents'. But I will be hosting a holiday sale on my Gumroad page for which you can see the details somewhere on the screen right now. As I said, I'm pre-recording so I don't know the exact details yet, but there will be a certain percentage off of all of my products. So if you have ever thought about maybe buying my sample packs or my preset packs or even my masterclass, then now is the time to do so. Links for my Gumroad page are going to be in the description. Now let's get back into the video. When I'm not at home at my parents for the holidays like I am right now when this video goes live, I do feedback streams on this channel every Sunday. And what I hear very, very often is a vocal that is placed in a part of the track where it just has no business being. Either because the track is already too full or it is too high energy. Whatever it is, there is often examples of vocals being kind of masked by all of the other elements that are already playing. One very good example of a place where you wouldn't want to put a vocal is in the high energy sections of your track. Obviously there's a lot of different things playing, there's a lot of high frequencies because you have all of the drums there, and that means that there's already so much stuff happening there that you cannot comprehend if a vocal is placed there, even if it were mixed in properly. And I say even if it were mixed in properly because that is really hard to do when you have so many elements playing at the same time. The vocal being so important that you hear it loud and clear means that you need a lot of space for that vocal to exist. Now you can have vocals in the drop. This is a good example of that, even though it's not a spoken vocal. This is more like a sung vocal. And you'll hear that I'm making a lot of space for this vocal to exist. You can hear in this section it has its own unique place in that there's the fill, so no other elements really are playing. There's this little glitch loop in here in the sequences, as well as some arps that are coming in later. And then it's just kick and bass underneath that without any of the drums. That means that there's a lot of space for this vocal to sit in and occupy. And when it comes to spoken vocals, you would want to do it in the same way. Now, believe it or not, that is actually the easy part, at least for me. When it comes to musical storytelling, I'm really something of a beginner, like I don't know music theory at all. I completely write by ear, and the way that I do that is I actually transpose to a key that is easier to work in, mainly A minor, because then you get to use all of the white keys. To give a quick example, when I'm writing, the way that it's going to work is that I have whatever MIDI clip that I have, and I'm just going to be writing in A minor here. Let's, for example, say I do something like this with the white keys, like that, and I'll write some, I don't know, some chords on top of that. I might go something like this. Essentially, you just pick alternating white keys, and you just kind of go down with that. Obviously, as I said, my music writing skills aren't the best, as you can probably tell from the way that I'm writing. But once I'm done with my chords, I just take it to whatever key that I need. And maybe sometimes if I'm writing in Frisian, I have some notes that I need to take down a little bit. What this is going to mean is that I cannot really use the kind of normal terms that are used in music theory to explain really what I'm doing. But what I do want to do is attempt the thought process behind writing something like the break that we just heard before. So in the break, I know right here I want to be in something very stable because this is where the vocal is. Really, I want to feel at home here. And the way that I'm doing that is by making use of this power chord here. The power chord, for my understanding, is just the root note and an octave higher of that same root note and then a perfect fifth in between. Now I layer that with this other bass note here. This is really a bass line that I wrote later for it, but the main chords were this here. We start at the basic triad, which has an inversion. So this goes down and you can see that this is basic 3 notes stacked on top of each other into a chord. And from there I wrote these 3 chords out here up until I came to this portion here where I decided I need to go back into something warm. And as I said, I just use a power chord there with this note, and this is again coming from a basic inversion. This time it's just going down an octave instead of up. And you can hear how it goes almost from something that I would describe as not really stable with the key into something that sounds very warm and very welcoming with the key of the track, which is G sharp. Another thing that helps here is that I'm doing a little melodic thing here with this vocal over here. And this is actually a vocal in G sharp. I pitched it up 2 semitones from the F sharp that it was originally in, and it just rises up 12 semitones, which is an octave. And in between that, obviously, it does go through some different notes here. We can see +3 semitones, 5 semitones, 7, and then it goes up to 12. So we're essentially going through a melody back into the key of the track. And that is, again, feels very stable because it is the key of the track, because we've already listened to so much G sharp in the whole track before it and everything that is happening before it, all of the sequences, all of the one-shots, the kick and bass. It feels very natural to be in that key. And that is what we're using here right before the transition into the same kind of very warm, very stable chord, which is actually what layers with the spoken vocal. So the spoken vocal really feels like it's sitting in an area that, feels like home. Now, under everything is this faster choir loop. This actually came in very late in the idea. And as you can hear, it plays its melody and then it really becomes, I would say, not really part of the root note anymore. It goes into a different, almost like a different key. It's a little bit higher, but I'm using that and kind of like fading it out while this chord progression is playing the different chords that aren't really part of the main root note, not as much as this chord is. And then by the time that this chord comes in here, it is really already faded out and really like washed out. It is also shifting up in formant. I'm doing that with M transformer somewhere here in the chain. Right here you can see that the formant shift is going up gradually, and this really helps it sit more in the background. So it adds another layer of weird feeling because we're not really in the key. But this effect is really overwhelmed at this point when the chords come back in, when this chord becomes really strong, and also when this other vocal sits in here. Now I'm using some other stuff as well. There's a lot more melodic stuff in here. There's this arp in here. I think I did a short on this one. Another cool melodic element that adds some stereo interest to the track. And then there's more atmospheres and pads as well. There's even more stuff over here that is again very stable with the root note. And then towards the end here, this is where the acid line takes over and we're going back into that higher energy part of the track. So the way that I would look at it is in this breakdown, we're coming in from a very strong root note part. In fact, the whole track kind of revolves around the root note up until this point here, mainly with the bass line, obviously, because that's just continuously playing the root note. And then we go into this little segment where we are introducing the idea of becoming a little bit more melodic with this chord part here. And then really here is where it strays away from the root note the most. And then it strongly hits back at this point here. So you get this kind of travel away, 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 and then right back into it where we then start preparing for the next high energy part of the drop. And the idea of this part being so long is that we give a lot of preparation for this acid line to come back in and to really take over and to take the track into the next higher energy part again. Now, as I said, and as you can probably hear from that explanation, I'm not the best in explaining music theory. As I said, I don't know any terms, I don't know any lingo, that kind of stuff. This is just the way that I look at writing something like this. And again, I have to say, with these analysis things, when I'm analyzing my own track, I don't actually think this way when I'm writing. It's just kind of subconsciously there. But it's a good idea to do this kind of analysis both on your own track as well as maybe on reference tracks to see how you can improve your own music writing skills, mainly in the term of storytelling. So that's going to be it for now. Hopefully you found this helpful and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.